Hi guys, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to The Wandering Reader. Today I'm going to be talking about my booked movie adaptations recommendations. So as you guys know, if you've been following my channel for a while, especially since Christmas, I am theming my TBRs in 2018, and the theme that I picked out for February was booked movie adaptations. So I've been busy sort of reading some adaptations and then watching the film as well. So every month, based on the theme, I'm creating a recommendations video on my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about book to movie adaptations. I have done a similar video to this a long time ago. It was probably very early on in 2017. I talk about some other book to movie adaptations in that video, so I'll link that for you just in case you haven't seen that, for my thoughts on some other recommendations. So I have 5 recommendations to talk to you about today, so let's jump into the first book. The first book to movie adaptation I want to talk about today is The Book Thief, and this is by Markus Zusak. This is a very well loved book on BookTube, so I'm sure you know what this is about already, but just in case you don't, the basic premise of this focuses around our main character called Liesel, and she's having to move in with some of her relatives, I think following the death of her mother, and the book centres around the time of the Second World War and the Nazi occupation, and it's told from the perspective of death, and it is absolutely fantastic. In fact, this is one of the books that I keep meaning to reread because it's been, I would say, a good 10 years since I've read this book, and I love it so much I just want to dive back into the world again. The film adaptation of this was released in 2014, and it stars Geoffrey Rush as Hans, and that's Liesel's uncle, and then Sophie Nélisse is Liesel, and she's sort of like a lesser well-known actress, and then the musical score is actually by John Williams, which is really interesting. I remember really liking the film. Again, it's been quite a while since I've seen it, but I thought it was a pretty true adaptation. There were a few changes, but there always are a few changes when things are adapted to screen, so I thought they did a really good job of that. It was really compelling, it was really interesting, and I would definitely recommend both reading the book and watching the film. The second book that I want to talk about today is My Sister's Keeper, and this is by Jodi Picoult. And this is definitely one to read, especially if you are looking for a good cry. Sometimes I know we pick up books because we want them to be a bit more emotional and have a bit more of an emotional impact on us, and this is definitely one to pick up for that reason. This focuses around a girl called Anna, and she has been born basically to help her sister who's suffering, I think from, is it leukemia? I think it's from leukemia, yeah, and basically her family were encouraged to have Anna so that she could help her sister and sort of donate blood and white cells and bone marrow and that sort of thing. So she spent her entire life giving things to her sister and helping her sister to try and get better. And the book focuses around the issues surrounding that and the kind of rights and wrongs of having children for that kind of reason and the impact on their lives. This is a complete sobfest, and the film, which came out in 2009, you will sob even more in the film. And I've said to you before that I don't cry a lot when it comes to books, but I do for movies, and I cried in the book and in the movie, and the movie was just, like I said, just a complete sobfest. But sometimes you need that kind of thing, you just need to have a good cry, and this is definitely one that will help you to get those emotions out, I suppose. But it's also very good, just like I said, because it explores lots of really relevant topics and ideas, and gets you thinking about the different morals and ethical codes to do with this sort of idea. And Cameron Diaz plays the mum in this, and then Abigail Breslin plays Anna, and again it's a very good adaptation, and I would definitely recommend reading the book and watching the film. The next one that I want to talk about is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, and this is probably the book that I've read the most recently on this list, and it's also the film that came out the most recently on this list as well. Again, this is a well-beloved book on BookTube. This is a middle grade book about a boy whose mother is really ill, and he gets visited by a monster who wants to tell him these stories, and it's just absolutely fantastic. I keep meaning to pick up the illustrated edition at this, because I've picked it up a couple of times in Waterstones and had a look through, and the illustrations are absolutely beautiful, so I do definitely want to pick up a copy of it. But this was released in 2016, and it stars Felicity Jones as the mum and Sigourney Weaver as the grandma. And yeah, I watched this in the cinema with my husband, and yeah, we were just pulling tissues out of this packet because I could not stop sobbing. It's just so emotional, but also really, really beautiful. I love the way that the story is told, and I equally love the way that they told the story in the film. The way, oh, and I forgot to mention that Liam Neeson plays the monster, and the way that they did the scenes with the monster, and just, I love Liam Neeson's voice anyway, and he did a really good job of voicing the monster, and it was just incredible. Yeah, really, really emotional. Another one if you to watch and to read if you need a good cry, and I would definitely recommend both. The fourth adaptation that I want to recommend is The Girl on the Train, and this is by Paula Hawkins. This as well came out in 2016 as an adaptation, but I believe it came out earlier than A Monster Calls. I could be wrong about that, so if I am, you can correct me in the comments below. But this is a thriller novel, and it focuses around our main character Rachel, who gets the train to work every day in London, and every day she passes the same kind of set of houses on the train, and she's always kind of looking at what's going on, and one day she spots something that is a little bit strange and off, and the kind of story goes from there. She is quite an unusual narrator. You might describe her as a unreliable narrator. My husband's read this book and he absolutely hated her as a character, and I know some people are kind of, this is quite a controversial book in terms of whether you like it or not, but I really, really enjoyed the book. I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and then I watched the film again in the cinema with a couple of my friends, and I thought that they did a really good job of adapting it. It was quite a quiet movie, I would definitely describe it in that sort of sense, but yeah, it was also really, really suspenseful, and kept you gripped throughout, and there were a couple of kind of really jumpy moments in it. One of my friends hadn't read the book, so she wasn't expecting it coming, and we sort of, me and my other friend sort of laughed at her when it came along, because we had read the book. But this stars Emily Blunt as Rachel, and I really like Emily Blunt as an actress. She starred in a few things that I really like, which none of which I can remember off the top of my head at the moment. But anyway, yeah, I thought she did a really good job of playing Rachel in this, and I really did enjoy the film as well. And the last recommendation that I want to give you guys is Room by Emma Donoghue. I absolutely love this book. I haven't really put together a list of my all-time favourites, but if I was going to do that, then this would definitely be on there. I read this, oh god, ages ago now. It's got to be a good 10 years ago now. Well, let me just check the publication date just in case. It was brought out in 2010, so it's not 10 years ago. So I have a hardcover edition, so I've got to have read it when it came out, so we're talking about 8 years ago, and absolutely loved it. This tells the story of a mother and son, and the son is 5. I can't remember what his name is. It's Jack. Yeah, Jack's 5, and the story's told from his perspective. And at the beginning of the book, they live in Room, and that's what Jack calls it. And he describes the different bits bits of this room, and each bit of the room has got like a different name, and it's just really, really clever. I'm not going to say anything else about the plot because I really do think you need to go into it knowing as little as possible, but I was totally blown away by the book. Jack's voice in this was so believable, and the story was so heartbreaking and emotional and just so well written. I really, really enjoyed it. And it was only actually a few weeks ago that I managed to get around to watching the film. So I had recorded it on my Skybox and I finally managed to get around to watching it. And I was blown away by the film. So this was released in 2015, and I'm sure you'll be aware that it got lots and lots of really good acclaim. And the actress that plays Ma, Brie Larson, she won a lot of awards for Best Actress in the film. So she won, amongst others, an Oscar, a BAFTA and a Golden Globe for Best Actress, and she does such a good job in the film. And the little boy that plays Jack, I was really impressed by his performance as well, and it was just absolutely fantastic. What's interesting is that Emma Donoghue wrote the screenplay for this, so I really do feel sometimes that makes a difference when it comes to adapting a book, when the writer is involved in the process of adapting it in some sort of sense, especially if they're going to be writing the screenplay. And I do think that made a real difference as to how good the film is, because I really did rate the film. So again, another one, if you haven't read Room, yeah, just please read it. It's just so good, and then the film is very, very good too. So there you go guys, they were my 5 recommendations for book to movie adaptations. I'd love to have a chat with you in the comments below. What are some of your favourite book to movie adaptations? Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.